order, and we will start with the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we have roll call, I'd just like to pause for a second for a moment of prayer and support for Dustin Tobias. He's a kid who grew up around the village, was very badly burned in an accident recently. So I just wanted us to have a moment to give him our support and hope for a speedy recovery. Thank you. Roll call.
Scott.
Here.
Metro.
Here.
Sinkwitz.
Here.
McGee.
Here.
Dumont.
Here.
Duff.
Here.
Staff.
Here.
Correspondence. So we have a letter from Laura Quigley regarding construction noise. I know that both the police department and the administrator have looked into the situation. Nathan, anything you'd like to report to us?
I passed along the concerns to Redwood and just verified that they were working within acceptable hours, which they have been. I've been in touch with Laura. She left me another voicemail yesterday. We're looking into it. There has been work right across the street from her, which of course would probably be a little bit disruptive. I was out there a few times the last couple of days and didn't witness anything happening at the time, but it is something we're looking into, and we'll continue to monitor.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. With that update, do I have a motion to receive and file the correspondence?
So moved. Second.
Motion Stack, second Duff. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Additions to business. We don't have additions tonight, I believe, but I do have a change in the batting order I'd like to make. I'd like to move the engineer's report to item 12, pre-A. Mr. Powell unfortunately has a couple of
President?
places he needs to be tonight.
I noticed that the part of the committee from the Corn Roast is here. I believe they wanted to speak, so maybe we can squeeze them someplace in on top.
Like to support that.
All right. Let me see. Okay, we don't have a park one. Let's make that 12 pre-A 2.
Pre-A.
Engineer can be 12 pre-A 1 with all of his items as detailed in the agenda. All right, any further? Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Motion Duff, second Sinkowitz. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, brings us to the first call of the public, opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items. All right. Seeing none, I will close the first call to the public, and we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Demott. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Metro.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Staff.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, that does bring us down. We don't have any public hearings, so it brings us down to item 12, pre-A, number 1, request from the engineer, and that incorporates all of the items that were K 1 through 5.
Thank you, council. I do have something going on in White Lake tonight, so I appreciate you making the opportunity for me to go first. Item number 1, the Goretzky Company, they're the company that came in and put the curbs in on the east side of the parking lot. This is precisely the amount that they bid for the work, which was the lowest bid of everyone. Also, in my report, I made a little error in there in that I suggested withholding 10% in that. My intent, however, was they did a great job. They got out here, the curbing is put in, quite frankly, better than I expected, thicker, more concrete. I would like to suggest that we pay them off. There's virtually nothing that can go wrong with that curbing, and so my recommendation is to pay Goretzky Construction the $10,500 that they did for that curbing.
Motion to pay as presented. Second, I'd like to make a comment.
Motion Stack, second Duff, to pay Goretzky the full amount of $10,500. Discussion.
Yep, and I called Nathan when I saw Mike out there on a Saturday or Sunday working in the parking lot here. humping pipe, and I wanted to know how much over budget this was, and he said nothing.
That's correct.
So I just wanted to get that out there, because I didn't see that, and I saw Nathan out there with Mike also in the parking lot another time. So, that was good.
I will say it was awfully nice to have spaces to pull into, and none of them contained a giant crater and a puddle.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike.
Motion on that motion. Roll call vote?
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Stack.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Landrum.
All right, second item, ASI.
Second item, ASI is our paving contractor, of course, and they stuck to their word and have invoiced us based upon their original bid back in the spring. That's why council decided to expand the project a little bit, so they did a very excellent job. And we've got some issues that we need to deal with, but for the parking lot, they were out there today. They finished a leftover spot that they didn't do there in the parking, and then they finished out the pathway between the Vita Trail parking lot and the Vita Trail itself. And so my recommendation is that they be paid what they had bid for the parking lot of $69,000 less the 10%. So my request is that they are paid $57,797, and then we'll deal with the retainage when they finished all their check boxes.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to pay ASI in the
Second.
amount of $57,787? Motion Sinkowitz, second Duff. Further discussion, and just to be clear on what you said, I think you quoted their original quote, but it's actually 10% less than the invoiced amount of $64,219, right?
Yes, thank you very much, yes.
Mike, do you think you're going to have any difficulty getting them to take care of these problem areas that we've come up with?
We're holding close to $30,000 of their money, and that's going to be substantial incentive for them to come back and fix everything.
They were
Yes.
on Laguna Jay doing the shoulder.
Yeah.
Yes, I
touching
was
up
out
all
there with them on
shoulders, yeah.
Laguna and Woodlawn, and so they've got the shoulders being taken care of. They're going to finish it up Laguna tomorrow, and they'll be on Oakview tomorrow as well, and then down on Wanda the next day.
Yeah, they were out there as late as I was coming here, and they were still out.
Good.
All right, further discussion. Roll call vote?
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Stack.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Landrum.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item, A&J Excavating.
Next one is kind of an interesting one. A&J Excavating was the low bidder for all the storm sewer work. Being a relatively small company, he wasn't able to respond nearly as quickly as what I had hoped, and he was certainly responsible for a number of the delays here in our parking lot. He was the contractor that installed the dry wells, the 3 dry wells, the 3 catch basins, and then the new catch basin at the entrance drive, and the new culvert underneath the front entry. He still has some work to do. His total bid amount was $38,000, and his invoice was at $30,000, and my opinion is that he is not sufficiently along to be paid that $30,000. So my recommendation is that the village pay him the $25,000, and that will give him some incentive to get back here and finish his work. And then we'll be talking about some retainage on him as well before we finish the whole project. So that's my recommendation, to pay him the $25,000 out of his $38,000 bid.
Motion to approve the $25,000 payment to A&J.
Second.
Motion Stack, second Duff. Further discussion? So Mike, is it just a matter of, he's going through the list of things that needed to be done, he's at, maybe point J and wanted, kind of thought he was at point M or wanted to bill us at point M?
Yes, he forgot that because he is a small company, he was overextended a little bit, so the village actually paid for a number of the materials. And so, yes, that's correct, and he's spread himself a little too thin. That's why he was here working on weekends instead of during the week. And so, yeah, he needs I needed to get his attention a little bit tonight, so.
So I have the wrong contractor.
That's
I
the
saw
wrong
you out
contractor,
there.
but
Okay.
right idea, though,
Yeah,
yes.
all right.
All right, further discussion of that one. Roll call vote?
Demont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Stack.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Medrow.
Yes.
Segwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
The next item is the annual crack sealing program. Council budgets for this to be done every year, and I think it's an extremely worthwhile and smart thing to do, and that's to fill the cracks in the fall so that the rain and snow melt doesn't go down in the cracks of the roadway, especially on the newer roads. We seal those up, and we don't get the frost heave underneath the roads like we normally do, and the roads don't break apart. A&R has been doing this now for about 10 years for us. Each year we go out for bids. Each year they're maintaining their price, 49 cents a lineal foot. The next lowest bidder is, as you can see there, 69 cents a lineal foot. They enjoy working for the village, and they do a very good job for us. And so I'm recommending that we award that contract to A&R Seal Coating again this year.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
So, motion Duff, second Demont, to award the crack sealing contract to A&R Seal Coating. What's the total amount of that contract usually? Is it's kind of capped at like 10 or 15, is it?
Yeah, I think it's $8,000 for local roads and $2,000 for the major roads, something in
Close.
that range.
3,200 major, 7,000 local.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we identify as many cracks as possible. They go until we run out of.
And then we stop them. That's correct. Usually what happens is, to their credit, they normally go over, and then they back down to our maximum amount. So,
All right, any further discussion on that one? Roll call vote?
Duff.
Yes.
Stack.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Medrow.
Yes.
Segwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Demont.
Yes.
All right, and the final item, RS?
last item on my list, which is very interesting, and I wanted council to know that ASI bid the project out for the painting of the roadways. That's the edge lines and the center lines of the major roadways and any other striping that we had proposed. They also bid for the striping here in the parking lot. Very interesting, their striping in the parking lot was half of the cost of these other two contractors. And so obviously I kind of picked and chose a little bit, and ASI did the striping in the parking lot, and I'm really pleased with it. But Andy did some research for the line work in the roadways themselves, even though ASI was the lowest bids of all the paving contractors. Andy thought, well, why don't we go directly to the contractor that does the striping? And this year, normally we go right with the contractor that bids the Oakland County work. This year, he bid it out independently, and you can see here the prices that we came up with, that he came up with. ASI was 50 cents a lineal foot. RS Contracting was at 8 cents, and PK was at 9 cents. The last two, RS and PK, are typically the ones that do the Oakland County roads. RS Contracting is very good, and you can see the amount of money that Andy saved, and so I'm pulling that out of the ASI contract, and we might as well have RS do all the rest of the striping, which I believe, and Andy can talk to this, that really in the budget, we can almost do the entire village for the cost of just the northern half. And so it was, I give Andy a great deal of kudos for following through on this, and we're both recommending RS Contracting be hired to do the striping here in the village.
Comparable product that they're putting down.
Exactly the same product.
I'd like
Right.
to make a comment on that, that if we can have the white stripe at Glengarry and South Commerce, the stop for the left lane put down every year, that makes such a big difference. People
does.
stop when it's white. They drive through when it is kind of washed out. And that's a huge difference, because I make a left turn there all the time heading north, and I see people that pull up to as far as they can go in that intersection.
Yep.
But when the line is down there and it's very definitive, they stop.
And you need it back behind the bike path crossing.
Pardon me?
Need it back behind the bike path crossing.
Yeah, and they stay back behind that.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right, I don't think I actually have a motion, so do I have a motion to award the striping contract to RS Contracting at 8 cents per linear foot?
So moved.
Motion Stack.
Second.
Second Demont. further discussion? Well done on rebidding it.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
that was all Andy. Right.
Thank you, Andy.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
And thank you, council. I'm sorry I'm leaving. I usually like to stick around, but thank you very much.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you for the candy and the water.
And the squash.
Good luck in White Lake.
That might be-
Okay, brings us to 12 pre-A, number 2, corn roast. I'm not sure if we have somebody who wants to come up and speak or report, or what do we want to do there?
I'll just say a few words.
Okay, yeah, come on up. Give,
I just wanted to.
and give everybody your name,
Okay.
just so everybody knows.
Okay, I'm Sarah Douglas. I'm on the Parks and Rec Board. So, address 2388 Terry Street. Okay, well, I just wanted to say a thank you to those that showed up at the corn roast. That was wonderful. I think we had a great turnout. And a big thank you to Ed, who added the car show event that I think added another big draw to the corn roast. I was really pleased with the turnout and the weather. You can't change that. And I'm looking forward to the 30th next year, and we're hoping to get a lot of council involvement next year. Would love to see a lot of public faces and to make it an even bigger and better event. And if you see Kelly around, give her a big thank you, because she worked very hard on that and did an amazing job. So that's all I want to say. Phil, you want to add anything?
Phil Peters, 2177 Park Place Drive, Wildlife. I gave,
But still a village volunteer.
yeah, I gave Ed some information from Penny Lake Party Store that I'd like to have him convey to you guys.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess the first thing is that special thanks need to go out to Hunter from the DPW. He really helped out because we were extremely short-handed. And Kelly, Cinco, Phil Peters, and that whole group of women that put that thing together. We were very short-handed at the beginning, and everybody was running around like a chicken with their head cut off. Also, Kyle over at Penny Lake, they wanted me to give this to you, but you're gonna get a complete readout. We had approximately $769 that was billed to us. He did not charge us for 300 pounds of ice. He didn't charge us for 10 cases of mountain water, and gave us a discount on all the other foods. So what should have been probably close to $1,000 bill, he only billed the village $684.90.
That's super.
So
That's great.
I guess, as we usually do on these type of things, is put something together and give them a letter. But on a personal note, I was really disappointed that only a few council members even attended, and that I was the only one that came there to work. So I hope maybe next year we'll get a little bit better turnout from our council.
All right.
That's it.
Thanks, Ed. I want to also add my thanks to you for helping to get that car show started again. We only had a few
It's a
there
start.
this year, but it's a start, and I think it was,
And also,
Thank you.
Monique saved the day. She came in really when we needed somebody to work that line, and she'd done it before, so
Yep,
make
so-
sure to tell her I said thank you.
so I will. And in addition to my thanks to her, I also want to extend my thanks to my sister-in-law, Michelle, Monique's sister, who is visiting from Paris and became our special guest international volunteer. And, worked the whole thing from beginning to after the end. So thanks to her. Thanks to everybody who participated in it. And I also got a lot of good feedback from people who attended this year. The weather helped, and people who were there had a good time.
I just wanted to, in reference to Penny Lake Market, I went over there yesterday to pay the bill and expressed our gratitude as much as I could, and they were very friendly, and they look forward to partnering with us next year as
Yeah.
well. And we can put together a letter to mail to them as well, just so they have something in writing, but they
Right.
were extremely friendly and welcoming.
Yeah, as shorthanded as we were, I mean, it it was amazing what 5 or 6 women did in 2.5 hours, once they got everything going, and the kids thing and everything, and the cooking and everything, so it was a
And the
nice
women,
thing.
plus Jeff Miller back there. I saw his smiling face out there.
I think it's also.
His wife was doing the work.
I know.
I think
but
he
she
was
got
just
him there.
orchestrating, yeah. There was a lot of people that deserve kudos. Do it again.
Yep, and I don't want to go into a long discussion of volunteers, but something that we've talked about a few times is getting better organized around volunteers, our volunteer pools, making sure that people, when they do volunteer, have a good experience, and also being a little more organized around getting the word out to people who would be interested in volunteering. So I think it's kind of on our to-do list this year, and I think there's a lot that we can work on there.
Pool identification, we
Yep.
really need to do
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah, because as we all know, when the same 10 people show up and do all the work at every event, they get burned out pretty quickly.
Right, and
many
I agree
hands
with
make
that.
light
We
work.
need, the members sitting here at this table need to show a little bit more support at the events.
You know, I see this at multi-lakes. We put on concerts, they advertise, it's in our paper and everything, and we lose money, and it's this, like you said, it's the same 10 or 12 people that are doing
Yeah.
it, and then finally, it becomes 10, it becomes 8, and then nobody wants to volunteer anymore.
Right.
It's a
Exactly.
problem for every organization.
Yeah, it is.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. It was a successful corn roast, and the 30th corn roast anniversary, or village festival anniversary, whatever we're currently calling it. Wow, time flies. Okay, that does bring us to item 12A. On here, Councilman Sinkowitz asked us to put Hurricane Harvey donation effort.
Mr. President, I put this here thinking that, all these places that are doing it's a nice gesture, but we'll discuss it as a council here, but I don't know if it's feasible. I was talking to people and they said, well, as long as you don't give it to the Red Cross. And somebody else says, I don't want to see any money going to Salvation Army. And I almost think, and I'm thinking that somebody's going to have to collect it, keep track of it. And do people write a check? They want to use a credit card that, and I know you agreed with it, and also did Nathan thought that it was a nice gesture, but the more I think about it personally, it might be a nightmare.
Yeah, I think the administration of those sorts of donations is very difficult, and, people are pretty good at doing it centrally. I know there's been a lot of effort around both Harvey and there is growing effort around what happened in Florida and in the Virgin Islands with Irma. So, I'd encourage people to give to
Yeah.
charity your choice.
Yeah.
Go where you are. I'm happy to have us, publicize things up. If we had somebody who wanted to put together some sort of fundraiser of some sort, whatever it is, not directly, with
Right.
the donations going through the village, I'm sure we'd be happy to help them publicize it.
That might be a better approach.
Or if we could find a consolidated truck that's going with water or one item, that only one item's being shipped.
Yeah.
That might be the way to do it.
So there are lots of,
When we were talking at the fair, one guy said, I'll be happy to put in money to Florida, but I ain't giving no money to Texas.
well,
I said, no, we'll make sure it won't go to Texas.
They're all our brother and sisters. There you go.
Yeah, but it's probably more of an undertaking that we want to get involved with, and so I respectfully wish to withdraw 12A.
okay. I think the heart is in the right place there, so.
Yeah, thank you, Ed.
Just a quick comment. One thing we did do on our Facebook page, we shared some information from, I think it was FEMA, about how to avoid scams, people donating money to things that aren't real or that are not actual entities. And so we'll repost that and we'll put that on our website so that at a minimum we can hopefully keep people from donating to places that aren't legitimate. So we'll continue to look for things we can publicize. Oakland County did a an event that was only a couple days long, and it was done on short notice, but we put that out there as well, where they were collecting items to be shipped down. So we will look to publicize anything we learn about that our village could get involved in.
All right, thanks. Item B, 2017-2018 winter maintenance resolution. I think everybody here is pretty familiar with this. It's the annual agreement to get reimbursed from Oakland County for the work that we do on their roads. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion Stack, second Duff. Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Scott?
Yes?
Renfro?
Yes.
Skinsewitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Lemon?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item C, IT services agreement between Oakland County and Village of Wolverine Lake. Nathan, Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, I can say a few things about this. We have a current IT agreement in effect with Oakland County, and we utilize IT services through the county. One of the things that we've been tossing around a little bit in the office is whether or not we need to get to the point where we can accept credit card payments. It seems like every day we have somebody coming in wanting to pay for something with a credit card, and we can't accept that. And so one of the things this agreement would do would open up the county's credit card online services available to us. There's no cost to this agreement. We're not spending any money. It's actually very similar to our current agreement. It just adds the language about the online part of it. Mike has been researching it, and I'll obviously let him speak about it as well. We haven't decided that we want to do this yet, but we're just in the early stages of looking into it. And if we do decide we want to do it, it'd be nice to have this in effect so we can move fairly quickly at that point. But I imagine that's a discussion we'll bring back to council after we get some additional research done. Mike?
Yeah, Nathan, we do accept credit card payments, but only online. People could pay almost anything, water bills, taxes, any of our park and recreation fees, but in person is a different story. Now we may be coming up against it as far as I think I've referred to our software as being somewhat clunky. And it's well over 20 years old, and it's going to be a big kind of change as far as the back office is concerned. And by that I mean it's going to be a kind of manual operation. And not that we can't do it, it's going to be a little bit tricky, but I got to get with the software people and see how we best can do that. And if even though it's going to be clunky, I think we can still make it work, but it now obviates the need for us to, or makes us, I think, really start thinking about trying to get something new.
And clunky or not, there would be an additional fee to,
No,
there wouldn't.
no. There is a fee now if you pay online, and it varies depending
There
on the
wouldn't
size of
be
the transaction.
going forward.
We don't need any cost, nobody pays an upcharge on in-person payments. The online stuff would stay the same.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
Support.
Motion Duff, second Stack, to approve the revised IT services agreement between Oakland County and Village of Wolverine Lake. Discussion. I assume our attorneys had a chance to look.
I actually have looked at this for other communities, and Oakland County, you're not
Standard
changing.
boilerplate,
Yep,
yeah.
yep. It's a good agreement.
All right. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Renfro?
Yes.
Skinsewitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Lemon?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes?
Motion carries. Item D1, recommendations from Water Management Board. Recommendation to accept the DNR Department of Fisheries recommendation to stock the lake with golden shiner, fathead minnow, and black crappie this fall. $2,500 from budgeted funds. And
No real comment. We did look into walleye, and I think it's fair to say that conversation went for Jeff to come back and decide where we were in our cycle, and this was his recommendation. The board itself had done some investigation into black crappie and decided it was a great fish to add also. So,
John, do you know the number?
I don't know that, we haven't taken it out for a bid. That's something.
Well, what
No, the number of fish.
What
No,
we
that's what I
normally
meant.
do is we have a budget of $2,500, and so when we decide what fish we want, I work with Jeff at the DNR, and he gives us a percentage, basically, so you should put this percentage of this kind, this kind, and this
Okay.
kind, and then we match up the prices.
And I'm
to-
assuming these black crappies will reproduce?
Yes, they do reproduce, Jeff said. They would prefer to have a woodier bottom.
yeah, I think I saw
Than
that
we
in his
have,
message,
but-
that they'll reproduce some, but they won't reproduce as well here as they will in a full natural lake.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't think we're gonna get into this, but a point I wanted to make, you know, a couple, 3 years ago, we were inundated with weeds. Now we have none. So hopefully next year, we're gonna find a happy medium. Because I know personally, fishing has been really non-productive, and most of the people on the lake that fish quite a bit have indicated that too. I don't know how the fishing tournament turned out, but, you know, there's, it's nice along the shoreline, but that whole Penny Lake end is just,
It was nuked, unfortunately. That was the decision made.
it was what?
I said nuked.
Yeah.
And we used,
Well, that's the trouble with sonar, you know, it's going through the lake just like it did when we did it some years back, so.
well, it's a highly different level of sonar than
Yeah.
was used years back, so.
So
Well, yeah, I mean,
But it is coming back.
The real problem is that we had a monoculture of milfoil down there.
Exactly so.
Once we got rid of the milfoil, there weren't enough
Yeah.
naturals to do it, but hopefully they'll be reestablishing in there.
And it seemed like the harvesting was very beneficial. That's it.
And just to follow up on the walleye, we're on an even year walleye.
Even year
stocking,
walleye,
and I
yeah.
imagine that'll be his recommendation next year for us.
Yep. And I know this is a question that people ask all the time, why every other year with walleye? And it's because the walleye grow at a rate that if you stock them one year and you stock them the next, the new ones that you put in are exactly the right size for the ones you stocked the year before to eat. So,
Yeah.
so that's what happens when you stock them
Hungry
every year.
fish.
I would make a motion to accept the recommendation from the DNR on the restocking of Wolverine Lake for this year.
I'll second that.
Motion Sinkowitz, second Scott. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Shell.
Yes.
Stack.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes. Motion carries. Bring us to item D2, recommendation to purchase 5 illuminated buoys at a cost of $480 per buoy, $2,400 total. And I guess I'll start by saying, my gosh, I'm blinded by the view down there.
It is, by the way, adjustable in terms of lumens, those buoys. There was discussion, and this is something that we really need to take forward with our police chief in terms of their placement, but there's been some discussion as to whether or not at least at the entrances, for example, into Penny Lake to replace that, the one over by Ethel Court, and then the one to the bridge, by something that gives somebody some beaconing when they're on the lake. And I don't know what the age is on those buoys as they sit out there. Do you have any idea? Because there's also the possibility of putting a light on top of the current buoys. And it's not that much different, really, than buying a brand-new buoy.
Administrator Berg had showed me some of the literature that you provided to him. That's what initially I thought maybe we'd have some kind of illumination just on top of the currents.
Right.
I had a few questions about these ones, and one was that the current buoys that we have, we've had them for, it's a while now. The problem that we do have with them is the decals that wrap around those buoys they're almost paper thin, and that's why they appear to be.
That's why they appear to be so tattered all the time. 'Cause are they just pulling them in and taking them off the harvester, or if somebody does actually hit them at night, they get beat up pretty quickly, and they're extremely expensive. So I didn't know what type of laminates, or if that was like an embossed color in the plastic. So I was wondering about the maintenance of. I think this looks great.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get one and inspect it. I saw that the battery lives were about 5 years. How do we get into the batteries? You know, I didn't go into any of that detail, so if we're gonna have to get into that sort of a maintenance, about that, maybe we could get one, check it out, since we're gonna be pulling the buoys out
Yeah.
in a couple
Yeah, well,
month or
the
so.
spring was the thought when you go ahead anyways.
We could buy one and take a look at it and see if it suits our needs.
Take it apart and look at it.
Yeah, yeah, and then we'll build our
Stick it
own.
with a sharp stick
You
a
build
few
your
times,
own?
see if it still floats.
Well, these
No,
Fluorescent lights and stick the
Andy
tube
brought up a
down there.
good point. I know the one by the bridge, and John lives on one side and I lives on the other. That sucker gets hit a lot. And I think the one that is by the swimming hole got pushed back a little bit farther than normal, but that's the material. I guess I'd like to know what the destructive factor on that. I mean, if a pontoon hits it, I mean, are they gonna be broken? And when it happens at night, you don't know who did it. So, I'd like to get an idea of what the,
Are they dusk to dawn? I couldn't see in the literature.
yeah,
there is a,
what their
slight
crash
sense
test results are.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just go with the light on top of our current ones, and either way.
So I think it sounds like, we'd like to get more information, we'd like to find out a little bit more, we'd like to do some investigation. I think it's a good idea to get a little bit more information before we really make a decision here. In general, just in conversation, I really like the idea. Where I live, I sit out and I watch one of those buoys, and as soon as it gets twilight, it's tough to see those when, you know, you're going and it's reflective, and there's not a lot of light reflecting off of it. So I see them occasionally.
I believe
keeping
they're
it
going to
out
be
there.
vended locally if it's not, I think it's Sylvan Lake, isn't it? Yeah, I think it might be worth taking a drive and making a decision from that way.
Was that on company time?
No, you think you better ask that gentleman. I don't-
It's research. Talk to Nathan, but it sounds.
Research, I think it is.
Sounds like research.
whatever.
But yeah, I mean, I think we want to know more about them, you know, how durable they are, how well they last, the maintenance and all that. In general, though, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the company that makes it has got to make it probably the same standards that the one you have out there in terms of plastic durability and et cetera. So, I believe what they've done is just taken basically the light that goes on top and inverted it inside and then screwed it down. I think that's just.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the solar panels and the charging part of it being able to take a beating, but we'll look into it and find out.
Hopefully, it'll take a little less of a beating, because people will see it at night, not
yeah,
rubber.
see it.
I believe the chief had a couple things to add.
I wanted to bring up a couple of things, and since we're researching this, I think it might be also worth looking into similar, if not smaller, things from the Onward and Upward or the fireworks people for that night, for Tiki Night. That would be something, I mean, if there's something even just a temporary, where we could put some lights on some of the things that we put around the fireworks barge. Not enough to where it's going to be too bright, but enough to where people can see them, because as it stands now, once dust settles in, it's very difficult for them to see them. And the same thing around the raft. Once we put it together, I would really like to see that thing lit. I think it's just a safety issue, and
That's a good
we've
point.
been blessed that it's been positioned in, you know, either in front of Blankenships or in other areas
Right,
that.
we've had lights on it in the past.
Yeah, and I just think it's a good idea to be able
Yeah.
to have something like that. So maybe when we're looking into this, we can possibly team up with the Onwards and Upwards and come up with something to help everybody, so.
Something that we can move at certain times of the year.
Absolutely.
Not that are
Right.
stable,
Yep.
but that we can move. Might be a good idea.
If we took the old buoys out, you could almost retrofit those with this.
That might be a
other-
possibility. That's why
Yeah,
I'm
that's
saying
that-
we should partner
that
with,
other light cap.
Buy the lights for the old buoys.
Yep.
maybe we can do that, so.
For the
I just
barge.
wanted to throw that out there.
That's a good idea.
Good idea.
Thank you.
All right, so I think no motion now, we'll get a little more research, and we'll be able to make some decisions. But I hear a consensus that generally think it's a good idea.
And you'll just report back, and you guys will make the decision based upon the findings, I guess. I mean,
Well,
we
we'll
don't
bring it
need to
back.
do anything at the water board, I guess, is what my.
No, we'll bring it
Yeah,
back
okay.
Yeah.
to council with a
plenty
recommendation
of time
after
right
we
now. Yeah, you got
we spend
plenty
a
of
lot of
time.
time on the lake doing research.
That's all you need for.
Yeah, we're gonna get the old ones.
As much time in the sunset as it
Yeah.
takes. huh?
For 'em.
Yep.
That's a good idea. I like it.
Already in
Yeah.
Okay, item E, discussion, interior street sign replacement. We do now have the exterior street signs up. And as a point of discussion, I think got a little information on whether we'd like to expand that, so maybe you want to.
Yeah, we did not originally plan to do all the interior signs this year, but the exterior signs have gotten some really good feedback from people. The difference between the green and white signs and the new signs is really noticeable in a good way. And Andy got some numbers together about what it would cost to do the entire interior village signs this year and just get it done. The benefit to that is that they're more legible, but it would also bring all of our signage up to the federal guidelines that are in place now. And so if you look at some of the materials we handed out, the total cost to do that would be $6,383.29. That would also include all the brackets that we would have to buy, and it does include a couple of the exterior signs that either need to be replaced or need to be added to what's already out. But the bulk of these would look like that. They would not have the logo. Removing the logo removes, I think, $8 or $9 from each individual sign, so it's a little bit of a cost savings thing to do, but it would still keep the same legibility, and I think it's an attractive looking sign. So totally up to council. If you want to do it all at once, or if you want us to divide it up, part of the village this year, part next year. If we do choose to do it this year, we would need to make a budget amendment, because we didn't plan to do that, but we thought we would at least have the conversation.
And which exterior streets aren't done right now? Pam Kazanecki mentioned that her street wasn't.
Well,
done
that
yet.
one, and that's the one that has, I think, 3 signs on one post, isn't it? Angola,
Angola,
Indiana, and South Commerce.
Yeah, it takes a special bracket. Right now, it's just
so we
fabricated
have the
from our
sign.
shop, and I do have a bracket. I found one that I can make, or that I can purchase. I was waiting to see what council wanted to do with this before I put the order in for that bracket alone, to see what kind of a
All right, because she had asked.
synopsis
and that was
council
the only
wanted to
thing,
do
is
with following
everything
through
I
with the
noticed
program.
around the village was done,
Yeah,
except that area.
She
so.
emailed me yesterday, and that's a little bit of a unique intersection,
Yeah.
but we have a plan for it.
All right.
Yeah, my only comment is we've dipped into the kitty quite a bit this year already. And even though it's only $6,000, I would like to see it put off to next year.
Well, I had thought about that too, Ed, but I think I'd be in favor of doing it now, and there's a couple reasons. One of which is the kitty is there. I mean, the fund balance is there, whether we're spending into it this year or next year, and we know we're going to be spending into it on these road repairs. I think we're probably not going to get a cheaper price on the signs next year. And it's not as if the fund balance is really drawing a whole lot of money in interest while it sits there and waits. And now that we've got these signs up, I gotta say, when you come down like Glad, where we've got exterior sign, and then you transition to the older ones,
Yeah.
it's really startling and noticeable, and now suddenly the older ones do look kind of shabby by comparison. So I think I'd like to see us move forward with this. We know we want to do it, we know we have to do it over the next few years. I think I'd as soon just see us do it and have it done, and have everybody able to find the darn streets they're looking for.
Andy, would that be a project that you would put off for a while, because with the leaves and all that stuff that's coming up this fall?
Sign replacement programs are always great for the wintertime.
Good.
If we aren't, doing the snow removal
Slower stuff.
and other things
Yeah.
like that. It's always good for that.
So we just be
The-
ordering up the stock, and then you guys, as time permits.
As time permits, absolutely. Now, the difficulty if you can see the way that they actually quoted this, is that these signs are not by area, they're by the length of signs. So you have a 24-inch long sign, a 30-inch long sign. So this isn't by the neighborhood. So for me and it takes this to do a collective study of what signs we needed, because there's many repetitious signs that didn't need to be replaced in that manner. So we are eliminating a lot of the signs that are crossroads that didn't need to be there. So we have a lot of cost savings in that. So the evaluation of what signs we needed and what signs we didn't took quite a bit of time. To go back and try and do that by neighborhood and then have them rebid this again, except for by size, would be a fairly monumental task to go back over and redo everything they've already accomplished, just so it's aware of that. It may look simple on paper, but it's much more difficult to read.
Could they
redo what the work
reorganize their
that's done.
shipment to your need, alphabetically, or whatever?
Well, that you can't.
Still, you're scattering yourself.
You can't-
No,
I
if you
understand,
get
I
one
understand.
subdivision, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd have to go
So we
back and
need to
reevaluate
Oh, I see what you're
subdivision.
saying. I'm
I'd have to
sorry.
go
I see
back,
what you deal.
yeah.
I see what you're doing.
All these are not done by subdivisions, they're done by street.
Yeah, so we just got
The
the
length of
list
the
of
blanks.
all the streets in the village.
Everything. This is
Put
every
it
single
together, said,
one.
okay,
Yeah.
what'll this take?
Yeah.
They gave us the bid for that. If we had to go back and bid, a third of it, a third of it, a third of it, or something.
Treasurer Condact and I talked about this program, but since we didn't know whether the village wanted to do half of it, council didn't want to do half of it, or the whole thing, we just threw a little bit bigger number in than what we have done before, but I had no idea. We're just taking a guess in the dark at what kind of a budget number we were going to need, and
Yeah.
I see we're a little off.
I totally understand Ed's point about not wanting to spend in and spend in and spend in. But I think in this case, I think we are in the long term probably saving a few bucks and saving a good deal of administrative effort in just getting them and proceeding. So, that's my 2 cents. Council's pleasure.
Motion to approve as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion Stack, second
Do
Scott.
we need a motion for the budget amendment? Or is that included?
So can I take that as a friendly amendment? Motion to purchase the signs as presented and or should we just come back with a budget amendment later?
No, I think it would be, I thought Nathan's.
In the memo, I had
He
mentioned.
references
You mentioned the
Just
budget.
increasing.
He didn't give a specific line item, but if
Right.
I give you that, we could incorporate that. How is that?
Yep,
Mhm.
and to amend the traffic sign supply budget from 3,000 to 7,000?
Yeah. And that line item is
Exactly.
203-474-726. That's what we've expended the signs in the past.
Okay, so we have a motion from Stack, second from Scott, to make the purchase and amend the budget accordingly. Further discussion?
I think they look good.
They look very good.
Yeah, I do too. All right, roll call vote.
Mikey?
Yes.
Dumas?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
Sinclair?
No.
Motion carries. All right. Buoy signs, Benstein Boardwalk maintenance. I guess I'll start with Dave, because you asked for this one to be put on.
I did, yep. And we had taken some pictures a month or two ago, and there was, on some of the spindles that go from the railing down to the decking, there were some that were missing, and there were some that were missing on the lake side. And I know, I grew up with 2 brothers, there was 3 of us, and if we saw 3 missing spindles, we would have been playing right there, those 3 spindles. And if someone had gone into the lake, right there, a child, there's no way out of the lake over there. And it's just a swamp, it's muck. And so I sent some photos to Nathan, and Nathan has passed that information on to you, Andy. And I walked the bridge this afternoon, and it looks great. There are boards covering all of those spots now. That bridge is going to need some service in the future, probably in the near future. And maybe, Andy, you can get into what you've already done, what materials we may or may not have. In my opinion, the decking itself is in remarkably good shape. It's level, the foundation seems straight, it's flat. And the spindles, some of them are missing. I don't know that they were rotten. I would guess that they probably had a knot in that board at one time. When the knot left, there was nothing left. There were only 2x2, which is 1.5 by 1.5 square stock. The railings, though, are gonna have to be dealt with. There's already some, I even took some pictures this afternoon where there's some nails coming out of the bottom where they've curled up on the ends. And, but I did wanna get your opinion.
Absolutely. I did put some temporary spindles up in those areas that were the areas of concern there. Those spindles, they have to be done from the outside
Yes.
of the boardwalk.
And you put them on the inside because that's where you had the
Yeah,
problem from.
absolutely. That's the only way we
Sure.
could do that. In the summertime, and so that's again, we've done this a number of times before. We wait until we get some ice, or at least there's some kind of the water's gone from that area, because we have to go down with a extension ladder, actually build some kind of a platform so the ladder doesn't keep on sinking down
Right.
into the muck as well.
Yeah.
It's quite a project to accomplish, just repairing the spindles through there.
Everything's always more complicated than it looks at first.
Yes.
It really is. So we do have some temps up in there to take care of the areas of concern, so little Johnny doesn't jump out in
Yeah, looks good.
out there, which we don't want. I think you probably even on some of those boards, there is some that have the ski marks. That bridge took such a tremendous amount of wood to do, and I think when it was done so quickly, I think a lot of that wood was still extremely wet coming right from, the factories. I don't think it was dried out probably as much as it should have been, and so that's why we do have a lot of those boards that they've dried out, and now they're just starting to twist a bit. There is some work to be done on those. The other hard part of that is that those boards are so extremely tight, we aren't exactly sure how we're going to evacuate one board
Sure.
yet. until we actually get into it. It's going to take a little trial and error process once we get into the decking. Most of the decking is pretty good. There's some boards that are heavily checked that I've marked, so some of those, when you walked, you might have seen some old paint marks on
I
there.
did.
That, we've acknowledged that those are the ones that we want to do. I have a good count on the boards. I've purchased some of the materials. I think the worst part of the material were actually some of the handrails
Yes.
that are actually rotten, and some of those of ski board even more so. Those I have material for. It's, I think we can get to it yet this year. Again, in the spindles would be a great time in the winter, but there's a matter of, we've had a lot of other projects going on this summer with the Amenia Park, the McCoy Drain, the parking lot. If all these major projects weren't going on, that would have been something that would have been a little bit easier to approach. I still would like to try and do something more with it, especially at least the handrails and the more specific boards that, I know some of the ski boards on the decking are very close to the railing, so I didn't feel like the structural integrity is good. As far as a trip hazard.
Trip hazard's all the way on the edge.
Is on the very edge. You'd really have to try and drag your foot underneath the
Yes.
handrail to try and trip yourself up on that. So I have been watching that to make sure that.
What do you think about those handrails in the future? Do
I
you
think
that
most
we
of them
should
are gonna be
consider
okay.
budgeting some money in the future to replace those? And do you think that system, that handrail system where it translates from where the spindles are to the handrails, the handrails are on an angle, they're
The
tilted
top
like
rail?
a roof, yeah.
Yeah, I think they meant for that to be more of a watershed. I see the ones, most of the decking and the handrails that we've had more rotten and troubled issues with are down towards the McCoy end. I think that's because that end is so close to the moist ground that's right there. A lot of the decking, all the screw nails had just rusted and completely popped out. So we have resecured all that decking down there.
I saw new screws.
Yeah, there was plenty of boards, and it was just the screw heads had just rotten out, so we had to just reattach those. I think that's the end that we have the biggest problem with the handrails as well. Most of them up towards the center and the other end, the Dalmania end, actually the integrity of the wood in itself is good. We do have some that have ski boarded up because they were just too wet when they were installed. We've tried to lag screw them down to suck them down. It isn't going anywhere. It's just that wood is too strong. It's made its mind up where it wants to be, so those have to be removed and replaced at that point.
And we have some of that?
Well, I do have some of that, yes, yeah. I'm sure, Mike, if we have a line on them for that.
Not specifically, no. We
Boardwalk.
didn't budget anything for that.
That'd be something we can look at in maybe the next.
Andy, the repair work that has to be done on there, you feel you can do it if you have the time?
Yes.
Okay, that's important. The other thing now was, when I looked at it, on the hand railings, I mean, I don't get on it that much, but I very seldom ever see anybody walking and running their hands down the hand railing. It's mostly just to secure the spindles and everything.
Yes.
But if you got a 12-foot plank and it's curled up on one end, is it something you think you could cut off like 3 feet
Absolutely. I've
and
already
then put
made.
another one together and hook it?
Yes,
Yeah.
some of those are, 12 to 15 long boards.
Just replace
foot-long
the part?
boards. I can cut some of those
Yeah.
down and say, yes, I can fit a 6-footer in here, I can fit
So
a 12-footer in
that's
there.
another project that can be done during the winter.
Yeah, yep.
Good.
And then we've already looked at it in that fashion as well.
I had a question about just the wood in general, because my understanding at the time that we got that, it's supposed to be like guaranteed for 50 years, treated lumber. Did it actually come with a genuine guarantee? So if it's warping, if it's wearing, is there anything that we can ask for?
The only thing that'll last 50 years is a railroad tie, because those are boiled in creosote.
Yeah.
Was 50 years. I don't think any of the decking
The
or any of the
decking was
handrails
just more
were
standard.
50.
That
I
might
think
be,
it was
yeah.
only the beams.
That makes sense. You're right. And then my other question around that is, if we think it's really just limited to maybe some bad lumber from the original installation, then it makes sense to continue that. I was wondering if it might make sense in the long run, even if it's more expensive, to look at some other decking substance on some of those handrails, some of those more exposed places that seem to be wearing more.
Well, that synthetic stuff is what, about $18 a foot?
Yeah.
It's spendy, yeah.
And I kind of agree with that the handrail isn't the issue, the spindles and the decking. are really our issue.
That's where the safety's gonna be.
Yeah.
I think the straight up womanized even on the top rails would be fine. Like I said, the difficulty with the spindles is the kids are kicking them out. For a couple years, we had somebody that thought they were a good Samaritan and was using their quad to plow the boardwalk out there, and we could see exactly where the snow was too deep, and it pushed the machine sideways, and they just kept on, they broke out. There was dozens and dozens of spindles that broke out from the snow plow that was going through there. So it was a more difficult year, a lot more maintenance on it that year. It was more of a spindle year. Now we can see where some of the top rails are rotting out, and I think we can get this.
Okay. So I don't know that we have a motion out of that, but does that answer
Yes.
questions you had?
Yes, thanks for repairing, it looks good.
Absolutely.
I know you can't get around the other side. I'm on that lake more in the winter than I am in the summer, whether it's walking, snowmobiling, fishing. And that is, a lot of times, that's so shallow and so swampy, the ground creates so much heat that doesn't freeze very often solid to where you can get something. So I assume you're doing something to spread out the pressure of your ladder or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. And then it's a matter of, we do have some battery-operated tools, but if we're gonna start cutting boards down there, we're talking about hooking up a generator with a saw on the gator, and and that'll kind of block down that area there too, unless we can get into one of those lookout points to give somebody some egress. So we do have some thoughts on how we're gonna approach it. It's just gonna be a trial and error before we get into it.
Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, recommendations from admin committee. Item G1, requesting council discussion of DPW staffing, adding a fourth employee, new hire retirement provisions, and supervisory duties within the department. So at admin, one of the things we got charged with was going back, taking a look at our DPW staffing, what the current level is, bringing some information back to council. I don't think we felt we could quite bring back a recommendation one way or the other. I think we wanted to get more council input and really have a discussion at the council level before making a decision
Mr. President,
recommendation.
I would make a motion that this goes to the negotiation committee and bring back a recommendation.
Do I have a second for that motion? Okay, I don't hear a second for that motion, but let me have a point of discussion on that, though, Ed.
I'll second it just to
Okay,
open it up to
so let's
negotiation.
have discussion
Yeah.
on that,
I'll second it.
on that motion.
The reason is we're talking about not only another employee, but making somebody who is a supervisor to be known as a supervisor, and also there's the retirement provisions that could be involved in this.
Okay.
So I think there's enough there that warrants a negotiation committee to go through some of this and bring something back to council.
Sure. So if we want to proceed down this road, I agree, we need to get the negotiation committee involved, and it's certainly a matter of negotiation with the union on a couple of these items. We clearly, within our current contract, have the ability to hire a fourth employee under the current structure. But when we talked about it and when we looked at it, there were a couple of things that we thought should probably be addressed. One of which would be putting in place a genuine supervisor position. We think that would be of great benefit. Though again, we wanted to bring that back and talk about it. The other thing we wanted to at least take a look at is how retirement, if we expand back another employee, how does that affect the retirement pool? There were some recent changes in state law around how that is done and how it's done in MERS, and we wanted to have the negotiation committee really take a look at that, see what there is there. So I'm not opposed to sending it to negotiation, but I think if we send it to negotiation, I think we need to tell negotiation kind of what we'd like them to work at.
That's not a problem. We're all in this thing together.
So, just so everybody knows, I think expanding to a fourth employee in the DPW would be a good idea. I think it's also a very good idea to get a supervisor in there. And MERS is a long discussed item here as well. So, taking a look at options. And there's more research to be done there. It may be that, adding another employee actually helps with the MERS situation, but I think we need to get more research and have a look at it and have a discussion. And there are a couple reasons in particular. One of which is, I think we've been asking and expecting more of our DPW just in the amount of work over the last 10 years, and I think they've met that, but it's been a strain on them in a lot of places. I think there are constantly, and I've noticed this ever since we went to 3, there are opportunities, I think, that projects could be done by the DPW if we had more DPW resources, but, you know, they can't do everything, so we end up contracting out. So we spend a little bit more money there than we would otherwise. There are also, as we've discussed, you know, in the past on this, there are a lot of things in that DPW works on that benefit by having 2-man crews. And if you've got a 4-man staff, you can send 2 2-man crews out. Also benefit. And there are some things that we would like them to do that they just can't do with only 3 people. They need a 4th. I think we've got a lot of bang for our buck out of the temporary employee in the summertime. We've been fortunate enough to have a couple of very good summer employees over the year. But I think also last year we went out and we did not find any good applicants. This year, we also noticed a very small pool of applicants for the summer position. And Michigan is a much different hiring pool than it was 10 years ago when we went to 3. There was a lot more part-time labor available there. So I think there's a lot to be said for going to a 4th. I think we are going to get some savings in that position in terms of, well, whatever we're spending on a summer employee now, or, you know, a seasonal employee really, because it's May to November. I think we will see some savings in overtime on snow plowing. Admin hadn't yet collected that up, but I think on overtime for snow plowing, I should say, because we'll have the 4th there. And I think we will be able to get more productive work out of our DPW, and they can really help the physical condition of the village in a lot of places. Just tonight, we've talked about multiple projects that they are working on or can work on, and, you know, they're making a difference for what our residents see. And it's not just Boardwalk, it's not just signs, it's ditch work at McCoy, it's tree trimming, it's a lot of different things that those projects line up.
Well,
And I've noticed it takes a while to get through.
Bike path.
You know, we load up on them so much that, you know, it's difficult, and nobody pointed this out, but, you know, if you're planning to work the day on the bridge and something come up and you gotta haul all your equipment, you know, it's like, if you're working on a deck, you put the saw on the porch, and then tomorrow morning it's there and you go hit it again. But if you gotta haul everything back, put it in the garage, then load it up and go back out there, it's like, you know, geez, it's like, what was that movie with, where it's repetitious until you get it done. So this way, you know, it'd be nice to free up the time that if there is something, you know, get it and get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, the staging kills us with a lot of stuff with the weather. I'm sure Andy would agree with that, the staging of equipment for certain tasks. As soon as you get ready to go and all of a sudden the weather changes.
There's always fires to put out every
Yeah.
day that you never knew were going to come up, so.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a brittle situation. I'm always reminded of the DPW study we did in combination with Oakland County and Walled Lake and the consultant a
Yes.
couple years ago, where they looked at what we were getting out of 3 DPW employees and just basically said, you can't get that out of 3 DPW employees. And I think we've gotten it out of them for a long time, but I think in the long run, we'll be in a lot better, a lot more stable situation with 4. So I would be in favor of sending it to the negotiation committee to have them look at, you know,
I'll second
expanding to
that
a
on
4.
Ed's, and I already did.
So we've already got that
Yeah.
motion. And so is that what council wants to go to 4?
Are we, yeah, is that a friendly you need
I think-
Call for the motion.
to recommend, the council's going to recommend the addition of a 4th
To go to,
with a review by the negotiations committee as suggested by,
Well, we're gonna,
regarding the.
like we always do, take
Yeah.
this in,
Yeah.
discuss it, and then make a
We'll come
decision.
back,
Do we want a 4th? If we do, these are the circumstances. This is, you know, this, that. What about, you know, all the circumstances that come with it?
Yep. So wait a second, Ed, I heard a slightly different thing.
Yeah,
Let me just make sure.
that's
I'm
why I
clear
think we need to
on-
clarify it.
on what you said. So, you know, the original motion was to send this to the negotiation committee, but it was with no particular instruction.
Correct.
There are a lot of things that we could send it for, so I think we need to be, you know, clear about that, and we'll see if we can get there with a friendly amendment, or we'll do it as a motion to amend. But my friendly amendment would be to send this to the negotiation committee to review what we would need to go to a 4th, create a supervisory position, and review the retirement for a new position. And I assume that will involve negotiations. So let's find out where we stand with that, and then come back to us with a report. Does that sound?
That's.
That'll work.
Okay, cool. I think we're on, I think we're all.
My understanding was, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not saying that we're gonna have a fourth, now you tell us how to do it.
I'm saying,
Investigate it.
we're asking you to
Look
investigate,
into it.
investigate the
Okay,
fourth.
yeah.
Come back to us with a recommendation or a report on what that will involve.
No problem.
Okay, and everybody on negotiation is good with that? So that's the motion. Send it to negotiating committee to review and investigate. Come back with a report on what it will take to go to a fourth. Create a supervisor position and come back with a review of options for retirement on a new position.
And we really do need the supervisor position.
I think so.
We really do.
Well, personally, I had a discussion with Nathan. I thought it was already cast in stone that he's the man, and if he's out on a job and he says, Mike, you grab the blower, and Frank, you get on the lawnmower, and he goes, no, I want to use the blower. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but it's news to me,
before
Andy,
we
that
send
you
anything
weren't
to negotiating
supervising
committee,
in charge
DPW leader.
under him.
Andy is the team leader, but it's a one amongst many situations and has been for a while.
Yeah.
This would be a genuine supervisor position.
Title.
And just to
I
be clear,
title with no money.
that's the sort of thing that would be negotiated on. We would find a good candidate for the position, I am sure, whomever it may be, and we can discuss that when we get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may just.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that clarification that we are not expanding the DPW, that the DPW has been a three-man department for 11 years. We've been waiting to be restaffed. That's a
Right, that you
long
were
time.
formerly a four-man department.
27
You've been
years
down.
ago, we were a four-man department.
And what have we added in 11 years?
A lot. You know, we were a four-man department for 16 years. We've been a three-man department for 11 years.
Yeah.
And we've been asking to, and we knew we were willing to take concessions as a department to help out our community, help out council, help out what we needed to do to get ourselves back into the black. And we're more than willing to, help out with that. We've paid more than our dues, I believe, in doing such. We've been asking to be restaffed for well over 5 years. So I just think that that's a really important point to make. And again, we're not expanding the DPW, we're trying to get it back to where it was 11 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that is important. I think everybody here is aware of that, but just so everybody does know, long time it was a four-man department. And also, when we talk about things that have been added to the DPW over the years, some of it is physical changes or improvements we've been asking for in the village, but some of it is other, new administrative requirements, new processes, new procedures. There's a lot that goes on that people don't see, that isn't immediately evident. So,
Government regulations?
our DPW is also our water department. You may have noticed at least one of the local villages has a separate water department on top of their DPW. Okay, any further discussion on that motion?
I'm still not sure it's fully clear, but I could be just hearing it differently than others at the table. I hear, Mr. Sinkowitz, is it your understanding we're still going to make a determination at the negotiation level whether a fourth will be added or not? Or is it the council decision to recommend a negotiations committee to see what that fourth position approved at this committee, at this council meeting, will mean to the village in terms of cost and alternative retirement?
So here's my understanding of the motion.
Just want to
and
make
what
sure
our
we're
intent-
sending it
what-
to
what our
negotiation with a
intent
clear rule.
And maybe I'll restate it again once at the end here, just to make sure we're clear on it. We're sending it to negotiation committee to investigate adding a fourth, adding a supervisory position, and investigate retirement options for the new employee. What I would expect is for them to come back to council on a recommendation with a report on what that will involve and what our options are. I'm not expecting negotiation to come back and say, no, you can't go to 3, or no, you can't go to 4. Whatever they do has to come back to council,
Okay.
and then we can discuss at that point.
Okay.
So, and I think that's, the same it would be with any other board, any other commission, including admin, which is why we gathered up what information
So
we
we had
had,
the
and wanted to come back to
conversation.
council and talk about it. Okay, so let me state it once more clearly for our recording secretary.
Can't be any clearer.
Motion to send the issue to the negotiating committee to investigate and review adding a 4th DPW employee, converting one of the positions to a supervisory position, and investigating options for retirement for the new employee, and to come back to council with a report. All right, everybody good?
Got it.
Beautiful. After all that, I don't think we actually need a roll call on this. We're just sending out for more information. So
Yep.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Would that be
Right.
something we'd be coming back next month? My only concern with that, and I respect council, is that time is kind of the essence when we're moving into our winter season. I mean, if it takes 2 or 3 months for negotiation committee to figure out or come back with an answer to council, we're going to lose some windows here. And again, it puts another whole burden on the full DPW staff. So I would like to get some clarification on this.
It's a good point. Negotiation, do you think you can come back to something with this for next month?
I don't see any reason why not.
I'll reach out to the committee by the end of the week with some dates, and we'll see what works. And, some of it, how deep we get into the MERS discussion, and some of it, of course, may require, we just negotiated the contract. And so if we have to bring them back in for certain things.
Right.
that's
And when
not-
does Hunter's current position end?
October
15th?
31st. He can go to the end of October. So, my hope is we can have a lot of information for next month, but there might be some things, depending on how deep we end up discussing it, that do drag out a little bit. It just depends on.
So let's get back what we can for the October meeting, and if there are further things that need figuring out, we'll figure it out then. I think Andy's point is well taken. We currently have a 4-man DPW, 3 and a seasonal.
Right.
It would be nice not to have to go through a cycle around that.
One point I want to make out, because I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly, but I'm uncomfortable when 3 people from council that make up the administrative committee come back with more than a recommendation on something. I mean, we've got you to get minutes, but when you're not in the conversation, that should have been something that should have been discussed here in public, our feelings towards it, and then, yes, let's take it to negotiation, or no, we don't have to, or whatever. But it kind of seems like some of the stuff, just like when the negotiation for his salary, you 3 decided, not the negotiation committee. And I just think that if you've got these committees, they have to be involved in those things.
Quick
So-
question,
so
when you were
Ed-
on the admin committee, Ed, did you have minutes taken? Or did you
I
just,
was there.
when you were on the administration
No.
committee, did you have minutes taken?
No.
Did 3 people make decisions what to bring back to council at that time?
Everything.
What
that-
has changed?
Everything that was discussed, to the best of my knowledge, was brought back to the council, and we discussed it at a meeting, and then something came from
And
it.
everything is right now, and we're
Well-
taking minutes at these meetings and bringing them out, where Nathan's taking minutes at every meeting that we have and
So,
bringing them out.
Let me address this in a couple of things, because, first of all, council asked the administrative committee to investigate this, to come back with information and recommendations if we had them. We didn't come to a formal recommendation, yes, we must go to a 4th, we must not. We said, hey, we think there's a lot of merit to this. We also think we'd like to have full council discussion, and that's why we brought it back for this meeting. Every single one of those administrative committee meetings is open to the public, and they're regularly scheduled now on Friday mornings, 9 a.m., usually the Wednesday after, unless we have a scheduling conflict. And it's like all things of any committee or any board. Admin comes back with a recommendation. What council decides to do or not do is up to council. So
Yeah, and
I don't understand the source of, it's, that committee did not sit down and say, here's what we're gonna do, and here's what the contract's gonna be, and here's going to be decision. We looked at it, we said, there's probably a lot of merit to this, there's a lot of good reasons to do it. We didn't even make a formal recommendation, village should go back. We said, let's bring it back to council and have a full discussion, which is what we're doing here. And I'm not sure what your point is here.
I guess my point is that when you decided to do that,
When we decided to do what?
Do what?
to bring this to council.
Right.
That it would have been, in my opinion, the committee look at it and get some information, and we could have maybe decided this tonight.
And we just did that. We just
No,
brought
no,
that
we
back
still gotta
to
go
the,
back for another month.
So, but
Right.
Ed, I don't see how.
another
I don't
meeting
see
would
how-
have been scheduled.
Ed, here's the problem with that. I mean, I understand the desire for efficiency, but just in terms of process, there's no way for admin to get charged with investigate, come back with a report to council, and for admin to say, well, we're just gonna send it straight to negotiating committee, because then we would be bypassing the council, then we would be making decisions on our own. We have to bring it back to council, we have to have this discussion here, so we can say, hey, there's something here, let's proceed to negotiation.
Okay.
Actually, the motion has the word discussion in it, not decision, or a recommendation, so I'm not sure where we're going down with this,
All right,
discussion.
I think we've beat that horse
Let's move
enough
on.
tonight.
We beat it dead.
Okay, next recommendation, I think, is going to be less spirited. Will involve less spirited discussion, but it is a very good recommendation, which is that council introduce ordinance 158 for special events. You may recall, let me pull this back up. So I gotta get back to the ordinance itself. You may recall, we had a pretty good discussion around the council about special events, what to do for some of these things, especially in terms of vendors. This is an ordinance that was modeled after, I think it was after the Milford one, right?
In large part, yes.
I think it does a pretty good job of addressing exactly the sort of things we're looking for, and
Right, so, as President McGee was indicating, a few months ago, you had in front of you, well, a couple different requests. One related to, I think it was the corn roast, that wanted the food vendors, and then the, I guess, private vendor that did the kind of little mini market, wanted to do the little mini market. So under your peddlers and solicitors ordinance, because it was a village-sponsored event, the corn roast kind of fell into the exceptions that you had in place, but we didn't really quite know what to do with this market vendor, which is how this special events ordinance came to be. So this would address situations of that nature where they'd come in and get a permit. Council sets a fee for the permit, just to cover your administrative costs, but it establishes, we want to see your health certificate, and we want to, know your names and the dates, and you're designated in this location, and this time, and this date, and just to regulate it a little better. Cover your liability more. So that's what this is. So if you want to approve this ordinance this evening, we may need to make a little tweak to your peddler and solicitor ordinance just to reference this ordinance. So you might see that in the future, but this should cover all your needs now.
so the motion, if we want to introduce it tonight, would be to introduce the ordinance and ask the attorney to recommend the tweak to our peddler ordinance.
That's correct.
So moved.
Motion
With the
stacked.
tweak.
Motion stacked, second Duff, to introduce the ordinance and to adjust the peddler ordinance as needed. Okay, further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Clement?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Stack?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Medrow?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes. All right. Brings us to actually adoption of an ordinance, 106A, 105. You may remember this is the actual map of the zoning ordinance amendment that we adopted previously. So do I hear a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Motion Duff, second Nedrow. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Duff.
Yes.
Stack.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Segler.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Lemon.
Yes.
All right, request to purchase furniture for Village Hall offices, with some pretty pictures, or not so pretty pictures, as the case may
Do
be.
not give Mr. Kondak water.
That solves the leak problem.
So that's your conclusion from this
Yeah.
report? I believe the water may have even been before Mr. Condeck was
No,
there.
Yeah.
no. It leaked in the famous Thanksgiving flood of 2015, I want to say. It leaked into the interior wall, right by the computer equipment and the rest of it. And the remedial process was, involved these, they're about the size of a dryer, which was propped right at the entrance to my office, so as to preclude any mold from growing and so forth. In the process of doing that, my eyeballs shriveled up. And secondly, the Formica top on my desk, the glue just gave way. And it's like, oh.
I remember when they were.
You visited me.
Yes.
Kind of laughed, but that's okay.
All right, so we have quote for general furniture. We also have pricing for 2 new conference tables and a storage cabinet for the large conference room. And these would be tables that would replace the temporary tables that are now in their second year that we started with. Good tables both, but not necessarily suited for their current use.
And quick question, Mike, OFS, is this new furniture or used furniture?
In this case, it's new.
Okay, because I know they have both.
Yes.
So it's all new furniture? I personally think that the furniture is in dire need of being removed and replaced, but I think we could hold off on the conference room for a while. I mean, it's, you have a couple committees that go in there periodically, and the one has got a rounded edge, one's got square edge, we got the new chairs. I think that's something that, just because they're mismatched, doesn't mean that they're not functional.
And that would depend on the cost overall, if it changes it.
No, I think we can just remove
Yeah.
we could just remove the conference tables from what we purchased, and the rest of the prices stay the same, right?
That's the prices on the desk and the storage cabinets wouldn't change. There might be a little tweak to the delivery and installation, which we would have to check into. That might change a little bit, but the prices on the other items of furniture would not change.
Are we to take it that you're entirely happy with your desk?
Yeah, that's fine to say.
Please. Please give him a new desk.
Let me explain something. My desk is grotesque, but
It's an interesting conglomeration of whatever it is.
But the fact is that it has a lot of surface space, which I like. It's usually covered in papers anyway. And when residents come in to meet with me, I take them into the conference room. I don't take them into my office, so it's not like it's publicly seen as much as these other desks are. And it's functional and it works. So the chief has been on me for like a year and a half now to get a new desk, but maybe next year. But I don't mind my desk. I might buy a new chair.
Not
Because
old,
Sharon's
it's
chair is
vintage.
not working out well for me.
I wouldn't think so.
But my desk is okay. But Tabitha's desk, I think, is 50 years old. Paige's desk is not good. We have mismatched pieces put together to add more surface space, and I wanted that to be the priority this year.
I'd certainly be willing to just go with the furniture, revisit the conference tables and the administrator's desk next year.
Yeah, I'm not sure about everything, but are they getting bigger tables or basically the same size?
No, they're bigger, and they'd be L-shaped desks, so they would have multiple workspaces. So they are bigger. They'll be in the same location they're in now. They'll just be a little bit bigger and newer.
I would make that motion that you, John, about,
So motion from Sinkowitz to proceed with the purchase of the furniture, but to hold off on purchase of the 2 conference tables.
and a chair for.
That is a nominal expense, because those are pretty cheap through OFS, so that's something we can do administratively.
Okay, so
Go to the
Quick
Taste
bit
of
of
Lakes
discussion
by the
before
chair.
I try to say this motion again. And kind of a question. Do we want to, we won't do the tables, do we want to do the cabinet for the conference room?
Yeah, that was 225. Right now, you'll remember, and I think there's a picture of it, that it's just sort of a table that has coffee.
Yeah, it's kind of a little, it's kind of a
materials.
little
I think we
used.
could do better than that.
Okay. So to proceed with the purchase of the furniture, to not purchase the conference tables,
And the coffee stand.
to purchase the coffee stand. We will purchase the coffee stand.
Oh, you wanted to?
Yeah, that was the one that you said you think we can do better than. Oh, you think we can do better than 225 on it?
225, yeah. I mean, and we could probably get one with wheels on it, too.
It's not a coffee stand, it's a cabinet, right?
It's a cabinet that we would be
36
purchasing.
inch
So it would
cabinet.
include coffee, would include other things.
I don't care. If you want to get it, fine, that's fine. I thought it was,
It's replacing that.
we're replacing that.
Yeah, it's replacing that little old table. Let me get a motion out here so we can have discussion, and then we can decide. So, the motion I heard from Ed is to proceed, so I want to make sure I capture Ed's motion, because Ed
Do
was the one who made
nothing,
it.
nothing in the conference room.
To purchase the furniture, to purchase a new chair for the administrator, and to not purchase the conference tables or the coffee stand in the conference room.
Correct.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second that. Discussion? I'm fine with holding off on the coffee table, too, one way or the other. If
So
we're gonna-
so
if
we're
we're gonna
talking
do the conference room, we probably are best off doing it all at once.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is reducing the overall bid by about $1,551 is what I'm seeing. Is that correct?
Yeah, though we're probably putting in another
And these,
150 or so for a chair.
yeah, and these units all basically match?
They do, yeah, the two front desks will match, and so there will be a uniform look there.
Yeah. I'm all for saving money, but sometimes tripping over minor issues like this is, for me personally, a little frustrating. So I guess I'm not in favor of withdrawing the conference table and withdrawing the two-door cabinet. I say go ahead with the whole thing and let's get it done.
Get it done.
I agree with John.
So I hear some agreement to.
Is this somewhat
do the
budgeted
whole
money,
thing.
by the way? Or?
But
We budgeted for this. This would
That's
be
what I thought.
within.
Yeah,
how much
this
was
was already in the
budgeted?
budget.
I don't remember, I know this is within what we budgeted. Michael, I have to check the exact number. It was in
So we
there.
didn't budget you in this then, Nathan, is that?
But I think we
But that
budgeted, we
was
budgeted
planned.
like
I mean,
2,000 or
we
something.
planned that.
So before
I
we
seconded
call.
this motion
Mhm.
because I wanted to have a discussion, right? I would rather do all the furniture.
Okay, so let me hear
Call
that
the
as a
vote.
motion to amend the motion
Yes.
and to include all of the furniture, including the conference rooms and the table, and a chair for the administrator. I believe that still will keep us under the budgeted amount. We don't have the exact number for the, but I thought we budgeted like 2,000 for this.
Right around there, but within that line item is $8,500, but there was, included in the 8,500 was a kind of an adjunct air conditioner that Andy and I
Chief's
discussed.
office?
We didn't really, no, this is strictly the administrative office.
Okay.
He got his air conditioner last fiscal year. So if we don't go that route, if we don't do anything there, we have plenty of money within the budget to be able to spend everything that's on the invoice that you see from.
The 5,000.
Everything that's on the invoice plus a chair.
That chair is $150.
Yeah. Okay, so I heard a motion from Dumont and a second from Stack, I think, to amend the motion, because this one's clearly not gonna happen as a friendly, to amend the motion to purchase all of the furniture, including the conference room furniture, and a chair for the administrator.
As presented.
Any further discussion on the motion to amend? All in favor of the motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The motion is now before us to purchase everything plus chair for the administrator. Any further discussion on that motion? Roll call vote.
Stack?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
Sinkwitz?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. We made it through the furniture.
All right.
The more adroit quarterback up here might have gotten us through a little quicker, but we got there. Okay. That's my letter. Okay, furniture, second call to public opportunity for folks to address the council regarding any and all village business. Actually, here, let's go back here. Yeah. Bob.
Hi, Tom Daly. I'm at 2377 Ventura Drive. I'm here today to ask the village council for an explanation on why after 4 years and countless notes to 2 different administrations, police department, and 2 to the village council that span back to March of 2016, after my questions weren't answered here at council, why I still don't have the requested information that I've been asking for on the development and the changes that were made at the end of Ventura Drive, on the west end of Ventura Drive.
So Tom, I'll address this, because as near as I've been able to tell, you've been provided with all the information that we have, everything that's available. I know that you haven't liked some of those answers and some of that information, but I think we've got the information back to you.
Actually, Mr. McGee, with all due respect, that's a very disingenuous statement. I provided and asked for specific requests for information on what type of requirements were required to make the changes, requests for the approvals, and the documentation of what was done. None of that has ever been provided. And I had to go out at expense to myself and actually hire a lawyer to actually find out and investigate the code, which I asked you guys to provide me which elements of the code dictate or regulate what was done there. I've asked you guys for a clarification of that since the end of 2013 after it was installed. I did it from China at night in order to try and see what would happen. I tried sitting down with an administrator in the police department and got no answers to those questions. I came to the council, provided the information that I had from a lawyer. You guys told me basically it didn't make any sense, and I asked again, what are the rules and the regulations associated with it? After that, last March, after we had that conversation last January, in March, I sent the entire council, each one of you received a note. It asked for further clarification, and it had a copy of my original request. Because you guys wouldn't provide me it in here, I actually resent you that note in last March. You provided that in May to Mr. Byrd, who was new, okay? Mr. Byrd, I had over 10 different discussions via emails with, and he said he was instructed by you to provide the information that was requested in that information. I spent another year asking for that information, was promised it but never received it. I resent the note to you a year or so, 14 months afterwards, in May of this year. You basically brought up the subject, bypassed it in this meeting because I wasn't present, because I couldn't be present, and you basically said that the attorney was working on it, and now you're telling me that you basically have provided everything you had when you were already saying 4 months ago that the attorney was working on it. So I'm having a hard time understanding what's really being done or not being done.
Now, I'm perfectly happy to go back and take another look at that fairly lengthy email exchange. I came away from this with the impression that you had received the information that you had asked for. So,
I've communicated with the council, every one of you. I've told you guys I haven't. I've sent you on record that note. I never received a response from council on any of that. So my question is, it seems like there's something missing in the process. Closure, something. But it doesn't seem like there's a process.
I would like to get you to closure here, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there is a process. And as far as I understand, I think you guys are responsible for making sure that the process is and that the code is all being done. So I've asked for a clarification of the code. I've asked for the information and the approvals that were granted and on what basis they were granted, okay? And now, quite frankly, I'd like to understand why it takes 4 years for that process to take place and still not have an answer to those questions that I asked.
I will take another look at it.
Okay, but I understand you can say that, but I mean, look at it from my perspective. I've been told that for 4 years. I'm
Well, yeah,
gonna leave.
but in all honesty, Tom, we provided information. You came back, disputed the information, said you weren't happy with what the information contained, asked the same questions again. We don't have new or different information to give you. So I'll go back
Again,
and I'll
Mr.
take a
McGee,
look and
that's
see
a
if
very
there were
disingenuous
omissions.
statement, because I've
in
asked
that.
you for specific information that's never been provided. I've asked you for what are the specifics of what was required to do the development that was done there? What are the rules associated with that area from a parking standpoint? I've asked that question. Nobody's ever said, these are the rules that govern what needs or can't be done in there. I've asked you those things. Nobody wants to do that. So I went out and tried to find out what they could be. I proposed something, and you told me, no, that's no good. So now I'm back, and I was back last March asking you, what does regulate what was done there, number one, and where is the documentation that said that was done? Because I've looked through the file, and I don't see any documentation for any approvals of how that decision was made, or what regulations, if any, there are, apply to it. I'm simply asking for information and documentation. That's all I started with 4 years ago, and I still don't have it.
Just as a point of clarification here, to see if we can make sure that we get you what you're looking for here. Would it be more straightforward to have him put it in as a formal Freedom of Information Act request? And then we can have a documented paper trail here.
That's fine.
Okay, so my question is, if that was the process, why didn't somebody ask me to do that 4 years ago? Why am I 4 years down the road here, and now this is coming up that I need to do something different?
Because, as near as I can tell, that wasn't the process for really answering what you wanted. But I think this is the process that is at least going to get you documented everything that the village has on what you have. So let's get his requests. Let's find out what it is. After we leave, call to the public, we'll have a little bit of council discussion about this item.
Thank you for your time
Thanks.
today.
All right, anybody else? Yes.
Directly towards you, Mr. President, I just have a couple questions on formats for how the council's operating here on certain things. We've recently hired in other employees to other departments here. My first question would be, did the administrative committee make recommendation to council to hire an employee? And is that the process that it goes? And at that point, does it normally go to negotiation committees for those employees?
That is
the way it is for this department?
That is essentially what did happen with the police recommendation. That admin came back, we looked at the structuring, we made a recommendation to do a series of things, and then the next place it had to go was to negotiation because it was a matter of negotiation.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure there wasn't any major differences there. And
No, it's essentially the same process. There may have been a little.
I know there's also been discussion with the potential of the restaffing the DPW where it should be, is with the pensions, in which my other question is, was the other employees that were hired in, were their pensions separated from the other departments?
So two things. One of which is no, and the other of which is it came up in particular in this discussion because the state had just changed some of the laws around public employee pensions when we were having that discussion.
All right, I appreciate your honesty, and I just want to have clarification on that.
Yeah, so it was just a matter of the timing and the changes in state law.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else second call? Okay, I'm going to close the second call to the public. I would like to address something with Mr. Daly, which is let's get this in as a formal Freedom of Information Act request. Usually there is a fee to the applicant with that. I would like council to waive that fee for him so we can get him.
Second.
So, motion Stack, second Duff, to waive Freedom of Information Act fee for Mr. Daly so that we can get his information back to him and not have him have to pay the fee.
Yep.
So I just want to clarify with freedom of information, he's requesting documents, so whatever documents, whatever written materials or electronic materials you have available pertaining to whatever subject must be produced. That doesn't mean that reports need to be generated or spreadsheets need, it doesn't trigger work happening. It triggers disclosure of documents already produced.
It triggers, I want to make sure we get him
Okay.
all the documentation we have on the things that he's asked for.
Right, I just, back to his previous requests, a lot of times is asking to generate more investigation and opinions about things that have already been opined about, and that's not, FOIA will not trigger that.
Right.
Okay.
We aren't doing new investigations, we aren't doing new reports, but we are making sure everything that we can get back to him that he's requested, we have back. And let's make sure we have a paper trail of this that's satisfactory all around.
Okay.
All right. Next item, we've already addressed K. Item L, recommendations from Police Chief Ellsworth.
These should be pretty straightforward. The first item, I believe, I just covered up my agenda item here, is, maybe I didn't. Officer Morosco to taser instructor course at a cost of $435 from budgeted funds. In 2015, we lost our only taser instructor we had, and since Officer Morosco is our current firearms instructor, and they kind of go hand in hand, he has agreed to go through this taser instructor course at, I believe it's Oakland County. And this is something we need to do on an annual basis, and currently we've been utilizing Wixom to assist us in certifying our officers with the taser.
I'll make the motion.
All right.
Question.
Motion Beth.
Quick
Second
question,
Devon.
however.
Yes, discussion.
Is that one that, like, you see the videos of them actually tasering them before they get instructed how to do it, or?
Actually, all of our officers, I believe, have been tased. We all went through that.
Including you?
Including me. It happened a while ago. It was a birthday present for me. It was actually on my birthday, and
Oh, nice.
and my wife came down to watch it.
That is not an aspect of training you care to repeat?
No. You can stab me first, but don't tase me, bro. But yeah, no. It was.
Let the record show, please do not stab our police chief either.
No. Yeah, tasing. I do not want to go through that again. But it's something we need, and we're sorely lacking in some of our instructors for the department. Even though we have been using Wixom, it's still a good idea. Especially, we like to share our training consortium in February when we do it. He can also instruct other departments, so it will be a great help to all of us.
All right. We have motion, we have second. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Inquist?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Demott?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Staff?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 2, request to purchase emergency equipment for police department boat, 1969, from budgeted funds.
Well, I put in this, in the budget to rewire and replace some emergency equipment for our police boat. Obviously, our police boat is 17 years old, and that is original equipment. And when you mix wires and water, after a while, they take its toll. Some of our equipment is still in good shape. We've added little things here and there. We're going to maintain that. We're going to keep that. Some of the other ones aren't such good shape. We actually, when we first wired the, for example, the blue beacon on the rear of the boat, that came off a 1999 Harley Davidson motorcycle. And we actually stuck it through the fishing hole, or fishing pole hole, and that's been there ever since. There are some other obvious upgrades that need to be done. Our fuse block is not a marine fuse block. It's actually one that's just bolted to this inside of our, what would have been a live well. And so-
What an interesting decision.
And it worked fine for a few years, and now we actually go out there and sand down the fuses before we put them back in to make it work. We just want to improve that, and we got a pretty good deal going through all of this, considering we're going to be replacing all the wiring. So I think this is a good, and this is the same people that we use to equip our vehicles. And I've had a good discussion with him, and they've done other boats for other departments, so I'm pretty comfortable with this.
Yeah, and so we've done it on it, I think recently, new motor, we'll get new wiring on it. The hull, as far as I know, is still in.
Still a
very
great
good
boat.
shape.
Thing will keep going.
I don't plan on doing anything with that boat again for another 5 years. And that's
Motion to
going to be in a
approve is
5-year
presented.
plan, so.
Motion Stack, second Duff. Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Landrum.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Demuth.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Stack.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
All right. Item 3, discussion, golf cart laws.
I don't know, I hope you guys have had a chance to look some of this stuff over. State legislators passed a bill which was signed into law effective January 13, 2015, that allowed operation for a cart, or a golf cart, on village, city, or township streets under certain conditions. I brought this up because we currently have golf carts that operate on the village streets, although illegal, but I'm asking that it may be in the best interest to address this, maybe to adopt this law, discuss local registration process if you need to, if so desired, and also, we do not have to register the golf carts, but if we do, we cannot charge a fee for that. There are restrictions, part of this legislation, that only allowed on roads with speed limits less than 30 miles an hour, which would include most of our subdivisions. You have to be a licensed driver, so 16 and older. No after-dark golf cart use. So there's a lot of restrictions, but at the same time, it for what we consider, what I consider a resort area, people jump in their golf carts, run down to their boats. People jump, and they live, go to their access. I don't have a problem with it. I just, to me, it raises my anxiety level when I see that, because if I allow it, I am therefore responsible. And if we can address this in a logical way where people can act like adults and do the right thing and not break the law, I would rather see it
I'd
done
like
that
to
way.
send that to admin.
To investigate and come back
Yeah.
with a recommendation. So I hear a
Yeah.
motion from Stack to send it to admin, investigate, come back with a recommendation. Second Duff, discussion. I think I'm in favor too of getting the practice out of the dark, as it were, and out
Yeah.
in public and correctly regulated, because we know it happens. It happens in
We have
pretty
a
much
lot.
all the neighborhoods. And I'd as soon see people not have to scurry around or avoid the patrol car or.
Chief, I have a question. When an adult, assuming 16 and over, and if they have a child in there, is that child required to have a helmet on?
Nope. It says right here. and
That's what scares me.
Nope. A
Seatbelt.
person operating a golf cart or who is a passenger in a golf cart is not required to wear a crash helmet.
And we're talking 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Which if you come out of it is bad, and you're sharing a public street with cars that are much bigger and much
Absolutely.
faster.
Correct.
And, those things kind of got a little bit of pickup. And, if a small child sitting on the back, either facing forward or back, it doesn't take much for them to come off, or if you stop real quick. And I know there's seat belts in them, but I'm sure nobody wears those.
I think one thing we can take a look at is, just as a practical matter, is there a known safety issue around it as it is right now?
Yeah, that would be
I don't
good.
know if you have.
I-
an answer there.
You can't regulate stupidity. I don't care what it is. It can be bouncing a basketball down the street. You're never going to, we got kids out here car surfing, riding on top of cars, car surfing. That's stupid, but
I'm pretty sure we can regulate that, but it's still stupid.
It is, but the thing of it is certain things you can't regulate. We could regulate that they're mandate seatbelts. We can, but again, if we start, we just can't regulate stupidity, no matter how much I wish we could.
And as I understand this law as it's written, we can decide which streets it's permissible on.
Yep.
So we would probably be talking about in neighborhoods, on the smaller streets, not out on Glengarry or Benstein or
Correct.
Glad or McCoy or South Commerce.
It states right here, it's not allowed. If it's over 30 miles an hour, it is not allowed. So you can't use it to run down to the party store.
I'm assuming they would be allowed on all of our paths, though, right?
No,
Nope.
not on pass.
Not a pass.
Motorized.
These are state
On
state
sidewalk.
trunk
Yeah.
roads, your roads,
Our roads are state road.
30 miles
That's
per
good to know
hour.
that they can't go in the path.
Yeah, and the
Well-
thing is that they're doing it already.
They are. And one of the things, again, to Ed's comment about on the cart pass, we can actually designate where they can and where they can't go. So if it is it's not a pedestrian path, it is a bicycle path. We can actually, but the bicycle path, I think there's strict guidelines on that. But can they get to the park through that bicycle path off Brisbane? That might be one of the things we designate. I don't know. We don't want them going down South Commerce Road and Benstein or coming down across the bridge. But at the same time, they drive it up to Benstein, are you gonna let them go to the park with it? You have 100 feet of bike path through there, and so, those are the things that really need to be worked out, and we would provide the village residents a map with that, so. But I was gonna ask our attorney if she's dealt with this in any other community, and
The Village of Milford just adopted a golf cart ordinance, I want to say, in the spring.
Okay.
So they went through a process of investigating, kind of like you're going to do, what's best for their community. They ended up coming up with, you register the golf carts, they maintain a registry, you can't charge for that, but they also put decals on the golf carts. They have a registry system, and then spell out all the regulations that, this legislation, actually what it stated was that golf carts are no longer covered under the insurance code for the state of Michigan as a motor vehicle, but they are still subject to some of the motor vehicle requirements. This legislation had to do with insurance, really. And so it has spiraled out of there. But we just produced an ordinance for the Village of Milford that I wrote myself a note, send to Nathan, and kind of look at some of these other issues for you about the bike pass. The bike pass might have some restrictions for motorized vehicles. We gotta look at all that stuff. Safety, I don't know how much you can regulate as far as helmets and seatbelts outside of the motor vehicle code. We'd have to look at that, but.
Oh, shoot, I had a question, now I forget what it was.
Well, it's a start.
yeah, like I said, I just wanted
How's that,
to
Chad?
have a
Help
general
out?
conversation.
Yeah. It's a good idea to do that.
Oh, I know what the question was.
Limits
It
your
was around insurance. So, my understanding right now is that golf carts in general, covered under nobody's motor vehicle insurance. If something happens with one, it's a homeowner's insurance.
Right, and the
at
Village
best.
of Milford actually included a provision in their ordinance requiring insurance coverage through a homeowner's policy, proof
Okay.
of insurance coverage through a homeowner's policy, to limit their exposure to liability, because they are not considered motor vehicles under the insurance laws any longer.
It sounds to me like we may have at least one model ordinance to take a look at.
Yeah, there's a couple, I'll send you a few, there's a
Okay.
couple different ones. That insurance was above what I've seen in a lot of communities, but they felt it was important in their community, so.
All right. All right, any further discussion on the motion to send to admin? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, item N, request from Treasurer Conduct to attend the MERS Annual Conference in Detroit. I think that's a fine idea.
Motion to approve as presented.
Motion Stack, second Duff. Further discussion. As we saw here tonight, retirement and retirement issues are pretty important issues.
Yes.
And as we all know. Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Sinkler.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Jumat.
Yes.
Stoll.
Yes.
Staff.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Mezril.
Yes. Motion carries. Item O, Metro Act permit request, Verizon Access Transmission Services. So I'm going to hand this to our attorney in a moment with, I believe, kind of a question. So my understanding is that council actually doesn't need to act on this. This is something that can be approved and sent back by the administrator, and this, for the most part, it's informational for us.
Nope, you have to act on this. But what I'm gonna suggest this evening, and I apologize if the letter is just in front of you tonight, there was a disconnect on my end with, this coming to this meeting or next meeting. But we reviewed the Metro Act application. The legislative body needs to, approve within a certain, or disapprove within a certain amount of days. Our office is suggesting that you approve conditioned on our office and the administrator working through some of these details that we pointed out. They're small nuances. So we can move forward with that, and with that type of approval this evening, that ends the clock. There's a 45-day deadline that you need to respond. So a few little issues that we had were just some language about their workers' comp insurance, better locating the existing facilities that they may have in the right-of-way, and getting a copy of the actual permit. This is for a bilateral permit, which is 15 years, renewable for 15 years, for use of your right-of-way for Verizon.
Now, is this cable all underground?
Well, that's part of the study that they go through, is determining if it's gonna be underground or overhead. It's in your right-of-way, though.
And there'll be no transmission boxes or anything like that, or,
Other than what they've identified on their plan, they have to identify all of the facilities that they planned to put in the right-of-way.
Yeah, I didn't get all of this. I was just wondering if being in the right-of-way, that it's gonna be, like an electric meter box or something big, something small, size of a beer case, or what? Do you have any idea?
It's fiber optic cable, correct? I mean, that's what they're.
Yeah.
It's what?
Yeah, but I guess,
Fiber optic cable.
I guess the question is, do we end up with, for example, communication boxes like we have with,
And with junctions and something,
Right.
where they go from up to down and,
Yeah.
No, you're not gonna see any large
Okay.
boxes.
Transfer
like you would
station.
see.
it's either in the air or
No,
underground.
Right.
Said they're not gonna use any telephone service, it's all for high-speed wire.
Right, and they need to make a determination as to whether or not they'll be underground or overhead when they do further study. And also the lineal feet is not exact just yet. So the payment that you receive every month for your Metro Act fees is based upon the lineal feet that is actually installed.
Okay, so I think I would entertain a motion to approve the permit conditional on acceptance of updated information by the administrator and the attorney.
Second that.
Do I hear that motion? Motion Scott? Second Dumont. Further discussion?
Yeah, on page 2, effectively, I guess, when they're talking about the background and the planned fiber optic project, the very last bullet point, last sentence, Verizon Wireless may separately seek approval in conformance with applicable law to site wireless facilities. I remember the village going through a discussion whether or not it would make some sense to wire the village. Is this a way for Verizon to come in and wire the village to our request for all citizens?
I don't know, that's a question, the administrator would have to talk to Verizon. What they're talking about is if they're gonna put in some kind of tower or
Right, I understand.
antenna, and I don't know if that can be done in connection with wiring the village better.
Well, wireless transmission, I've looked at them. I've got a jump box that goes for 4.5 miles. If I want to kick it up off my home wireless box, so I'm just wondering if you could get just further clarification on that. I don't know if this is a way to give the village its wireless
Not through
capable?
this Metro Act permit.
Not through that? So
No.
that isn't what
This
that
would-
sentence means then?
No, what they're saying is, if we are going to need additional wireless equipment, we will seek that separately. That's through a different process. This is just for
Wiring the building.
communication
Just for
lines
putting
in
the-
your right
putting
of
the
way.
lines in.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm in no way, shape, or form the expert in this, but
Yeah.
as I understand, what they're doing is, they're putting in fiber optic, and they want to be able to compete with Xfinity and Comcast and a couple
Sure.
of other options here.
Right.
Comcast, I mean, Xfinity owns the wired cable. Xfinity, I mean, we've had them already put fiber optic in regarding what AT&T used to have in, which is copper line, so this is just their way to come into the village.
Yeah.
That's good.
When
They're gonna come in
Great
and-
Lakes
and-
Cable was the first ones to come through here, through the village. And at the time, I was the president, it was $6 and I think 70-odd cents to have cable in your home. Of course, there wasn't a lot of channels.
13 glorious channels.
But it didn't take long.
They're under
Okay.
a lot of pressure because of all of the side banding that's going on right now.
Yeah, there's
My kids have Sling and they've got, effectively 19 channels out there, so at $11 a month.
the market is
Changing.
Is that through an
difficult
antenna?
at the moment.
Sling?
No, it's through a wireless connection with Verizon. That's why I'm just curious.
So you basically
But-
take your signal in anywheres and you send it to anywhere else. All of those things take bandwidth, and that's why we've got Comcast and Xfinity, and there is probably market room for a whole
lot
additional
more.
batch of fiber optic.
Comcast is so expensive, jeez.
Okay, any further discussion on this? So, motion to approve conditional on acceptance by administrator and attorney. Let's get a roll call vote on this one.
McGee?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Stoll?
Yes.
Staff?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Edgerl?
Yes.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, brings us to set topics for September 27th work session. This is what we have set as the joint meeting with Park and Rec. We will also have our park planner in attendance, so he can get directions straight from us. I don't know that there's a lot more to add to that, except to entertain the motion to set it. Support. Motion Duff, second Stack, to set the December 27th work meeting as the planned joint session with Park and Rec to discuss Clara Miller master plan. Nathan, anything else to add?
Ken is also going to televise and broadcast that meeting, so we'll put a notice out for people who may want to watch it online that it'll be available. We're going to have to reconfigure our seating arrangement a little bit because I think there are 7 Park and Rec board members, and we might need to add a table to one end or another, so we'll get that figured out. But information about the meeting is online. It's on the front page of the website. You can actually click on that, and anybody in the village can look at the draft of the master plan as it exists currently. It's a very big document, but it's all available there, and yeah, looking forward to it.
All right.
Is there a need or an opportunity to go to the Park and Rec's board through David to see if they have anything they want to add specifically to the agenda as written, or are we going to keep it fairly general? I don't know if that's a...
I would like us to keep it focused on Clara Miller Park master plan.
Right, I understand that.
One park member did come in and stop by the chief's office and my office with some ideas that I'm sure she'll bring to the discussion. A contractor came in yesterday with a drawing of a potential layout for a fountain and different things. I don't know.
I thought we were all done with that.
Well, I don't know where it came from. It's sort of an out of the blue thing. So people know about this, and they're probably going to come in with some ideas, which is all part of the discussion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Pending business, we have none tonight. Update from the chief.
Thank you, Chairman, Mr. President. I have just a couple things. We finished up our Marine Patrol this year, and in August, officers worked 65 hours in Marine Patrol, 5 boaters were assisted, along with 20 warnings 1 citation, and 1 arrest for OWI watercraft. The sergeant's promotional exam, written exam, is taking place tomorrow morning. We have 2 officers that'll be taking the exam, and then we will set up an oral board after we receive the results from the written exam. I do have some immediate news I wanted to pass along to you. Some of you may have known that there was a serious personal injury accident at South Commerce and Wolverine Drive this evening, actually this afternoon at 2:55 p.m., involving an empty school bus. But that empty school bus was hit head-on by a young man from Wolverine Lake, and he is currently, in fact, I wasn't trying to be rude earlier, I was trying to do a checkup on this young man. He is in critical condition at Botsford Hospital with multiple fractures and injuries. He's not doing really well. So I'll leave it at that for now, but in case you did not know, South Commerce was closed down for a while, late afternoon, early evening. It's back open now, but it was quite a scene. Oakland County Sheriff's Department Accident Reconstruction came out and took the scene from, it was actually occurred on Wall Lake side, but Oakland County Sheriff's Department came out and handled it. Also, I wanted to offer my condolences to the family of Scott and Sally Baker. Scott is obviously Jennifer's partner and our village prosecutor, who lost their daughter Charlie this week. She was an infant, and our condolences on behalf of the police department to Scott and your firm. So, other than that, it's been a very short summer, it seemed like.
Too short.
That's it. That's for sure.
All right, update from the treasurer.
Nothing here, Mr. President.
Update from the administrator.
We have just a couple of Taste of the Lakes tickets left in Village Hall. I know Mr. Stack
Need more?
may have some more, so
Okay.
we are down to just a few. That is Tuesday night, so if anybody wants to purchase those from our office, come in the next couple days. I've notified council of the results of our water board survey that was done in August. It was a lot of good news, really, compared to last summer on the lake. We went from 46% satisfied to 83% satisfied. But we know that there are always going to be some challenges in taking care of the lake. But I do want to post that survey on our website, and I just want to make sure council is okay with that, just so people can see what kind of feedback we get. We'll also address some common questions that we received as part of that document. And then lastly, I don't know where these came from. We came down to set up, and these were on the desk. The Commerce Garden Club had a meeting here last night, so I'm suspecting it's from them, but I just want to let you know, I don't know where they came from, and I assume they're yours if you want them.
Can we take, okay, I was gonna ask, can we take
I
them
don't.
home? I haven't bought a pumpkin.
We've received no
Big
guidance on these.
Carve a jack-o'-lantern face on that.
So I don't know where they came from.
They're gorgeous.
I'll take one home.
That's all I have.
Motion to censure Ned Rowe for that pun. All right, council comments, and we will start down here this morning.
All right, as Administrator Byrd said, we do have tickets for the Taste of the Lakes, which is this coming Tuesday at Edgewood from 5 to 8 o'clock. Great event. And this Saturday is Wolverine Lake Oktoberfest at the Blankenships. So we have plenty of tickets for that. All you have to do is show up, make a small donation, and it's a great evening. Lots of food, lots of drink, lots of fun, lots of entertainment.
No comment.
Well, with regard to our upcoming joint meeting with Park and Rec, that board has some tremendous members. They have a lot of heart, a lot of spirit, a lot of enthusiasm, and they volunteer their time. And in a couple weeks, I want to make sure that we give them our ear and our respect for the time they serve on that board and the ideas they're going to bring forward in a couple weeks.
Great.
Mr. Scott?
I guess I have to ditto what was said here, and certainly by you, Ed. All of us who should be in attendance, don't necessarily aren't in town, but I understand it was a great festival. I got a few shots. I think even the good chief sent along a great Facebook clip on the village festival. So let's carry forward. That's all I've got to say.
No comment, good day.
Yeah, in the spinal column, over the last month or so, there were a couple real nice articles. One about our 2 officers that stepped up and saved one person's life in another situation. And a very nice article about our chief and being the senior, not only in age, but in years on council. I'm going to say right now that I don't think we've had a finer, better trained, and more likable police department since I've been here 44 years. Doing a hell of a job, John.
I agree.
All right. And for me, I first of all wanted to pass along my condolences to Scott and his family on that loss. And I forget what the second thing was that I had to say, so I would just
You're
accept the motion
gonna
to
say,
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion Sikowitz.
Support.
Second Stack. All
If
in
ever you
favor?
get stuck, just let us know. We'll help you out.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.